Alright guys, in this video I want to talk about saturated fat and cholesterol and why saturated fat and cholesterol are so important to our health, and also discuss some of the myths and the fallacies that surround saturated fat and cholesterol, like saturated fat and cholesterol will clog our arteries and give us heart disease, which we now know is a fallacy. That hypothesis originally came from a man named Ansel Keys, and Ansel Keys was a physiologist who hypothesized that when you eat saturated fat, your cholesterol will rise, cholesterol will clog your arteries, and you'll get a heart attack and die. And as we now know, that is a fallacy, as I already said. So what is cholesterol? Well, cholesterol is made in our liver, and cholesterol is critical to life. Without cholesterol, we would die. Cholesterol makes all of our steroid hormones, things like pregnenolone, progesterone, cortisol, DHEA, testosterone, and estrogen. Cholesterol also makes all the myelinated sheaths of our nervous system. So it's critical to the function of our nervous system, it's critical to the function of our brain, it's critical to the function to all of the cells in our body, all of the trillions of cells in our body. It's a critical component of the immune system, and it's also a potent antioxidant in our body. So cholesterol is very, very important to our health. Now, cholesterol gets around the body through two main lipoprotein receptors: high density lipoprotein receptors and low density lipoprotein receptors. And for some reason, the high density lipoprotein receptors are known as good cholesterol, and the low density lipoprotein receptors are known as bad cholesterol. This is also another myth and another fallacy. There is no good or bad cholesterol. All the cholesterol in the body is the same. It's just that it gets transported around the body through different lipoprotein receptors, and neither of these receptors are bad. They're actually both very, very critical. Now, the low density lipoprotein receptors are the receptors responsible for transporting cholesterol around the body so it can make our steroid hormones, make the myelinated sheaths of our nervous system, help with brain function, cell function, immune function, and help cholesterol act as an antioxidant within our body. The main role of the high density lipoprotein receptors is to go out into the bloodstream and bring back these LDL particles to the liver to be resynthesized or excreted from the body, and this is known as the lipid cycle. So the question is now, what causes heart disease if cholesterol isn't the cause? And the answer is stress. Stress is the precursor to all chronic degenerative diseases, because stress raises inflammation. And inflammation is a precursor to all chronic degenerative diseases. And as we went over in the adrenal dysfunction video and the future of healthcare and sports performance video, stress is multifactorial. Stress can be in the form of hidden internal stress, so things like autoimmunity, leaky gut, food sensitivities, maybe even a parasite, fungal, or yeast infection. Then we have external stress, which is financial and relationship stress, things of that nature. And then we have physical stress, which will come from overtraining, and structural stress, which will come from things like low back pain, knee pain, hip pain, shoulder pain, things of that nature. Okay, and all this stress can lead to inflammation in the body. From a dietary standpoint, what causes a lot of stress and a lot of inflammation in the body is chronic high blood sugar levels and chronic consumption of omega-6 polyunsaturated fats. These two things can cause a lot of inflammation in our body. So another question is now, what are the best biomarkers to look at to see if you're at risk of heart disease? Because conventional medicine will make you believe that total cholesterol is one of the primary markers to see if you're at risk of heart disease, and this is also another myth and another fallacy. Total cholesterol doesn't matter at all. What's more important are two things. Okay, so if you want to know if you're at risk of developing heart disease, these are the two things you need to look at. One is you need to know what your ratio of high density lipoprotein particles is to low density lipoprotein particles. If there is an excess of low density lipoprotein particles to high density lipoprotein particles, this just tells us that there's excess stress going on in your body. When the body is stressed, you will always make more cholesterol, because cholesterol is the precursor to a stress hormone. So when stress goes up, cholesterol goes up. And when there is a big difference in the ratio between low density lipoprotein particles to high density lipoprotein particles, being that the LDL particles are very, very elevated in ratio to the HDL particles, this just tells us you're under a lot of stress. Now, the other test and the other biomarker we need to look at is a test called highly sensitive C-reactive protein, and this just tells us how much inflammation is going on inside your body. So if we find that there's a lot of inflammation going on inside your body, and that you have a large excess of low density lipoprotein receptors in ratio to high density lipoprotein receptors, this will put you at a large risk of developing heart disease. Okay, and if you have very high inflammatory levels, you are actually at risk of developing any chronic degenerative disease, because again, inflammation is a precursor to all chronic degenerative disease. So again, if you have a doctor who just looks at total cholesterol and prescribes you a statin, that doctor is an idiot. You need to find another doctor, and a better doctor. Don't forget that drugs make the pharmaceutical industry billions, particularly statins. Statins make the pharmaceutical industry billions every year. Some doctors get commissions on drugs, so the more drugs they sell, the more money they make. The pharmaceutical industry do not want you to know the truth about saturated fat and cholesterol, which is that they are critical to our health and do not cause heart disease, because it would cost them a lot of money and a lot of profit. So another question now is, well, what does cause the plaque that's often associated with heart disease or even strokes if the plaque is in like the carotid artery? What happens there is, again, there's a lot of inflammation in the body, and when there's a lot of inflammation in the body, what can happen to the arterial walls in our system is they become scarred and ulcer-like formations can happen. Cholesterol is a repair mechanism, okay? So when there is a lot of damage done to the arterial walls, extra cholesterol is made to deal with this stress and to deal with this excess inflammation. And what cholesterol is trying to do is trying to go into the cells of the arterial walls and repair this scarring and this ulcer-like formation. But if the inflammation is chronic and prolonged, and if the inflammation overrides this repair process, what can happen to these excess LDL particles is that they become oxidized. And when they become oxidized, this can lead to plaque formation. So you get things like calcium and cholesterol deposits on the inside of the arterial wall, which is known as the epithelial cells of the arterial wall, and this can build up the plaque. So cholesterol does not cause heart disease. Okay, cholesterol is a protective mechanism. It's a repair mechanism that's trying to go in and help our body heal itself. Okay, to reduce our risk of heart disease and to reverse the risk of heart disease, we need to modulate the stressors that are leading to this excess inflammation. Okay, now some books that I think you guys might find very interesting would be the following: The Cholesterol Myths by Ufi Ravenscoff, who is a medical doctor. Fat and Cholesterol Are Good For You, another book by Ufi Ravenscoff. Ignore the Awkward, which is Ufi Ravenscoff's third book. The GAPS Diet by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, MD. And Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride also has a book on cholesterol called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. 29 Billion Reasons to Lie About Cholesterol by Justin Smith. And Justin has a documentary coming out soon about cholesterol. Know Your Fats by Mary Ingrid, PhD biochemist. Deep Nutrition by Dr. Catherine Shanahan, MD. Primal Body, Primal Mind by Nora Gaygotis. Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis, MD. The Great Cholesterol Con by Malcolm Kendrick, MD. Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. The Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf. Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. And The Great Cholesterol Con by Anthony Colpo. Same title as Dr. Malcolm Kendrick's book, but obviously different author. Another book worth checking out is a book called Lipitor, The Thief of Memory, which was written by a medical doctor by the name of Dr. Graveline. What's his name? Graveline is his second name. Dwayne, that's it. Dr. Dwayne Graveline, and his book is Lipitor, The Thief of Memory. And in that book, Dr. Graveline speaks about his personal experience of of the side effects of statins. He was prescribed statins and he took statins, and it actually affected his memory, and he actually lost his memory when he took statins. And this also gets into our discussion on statins. Now, statins have a large amount of side effects. So in this book by Dr. Dwayne Graveline, he speaks about how he lost his memory when he took statins. Now, when he stopped taking statins, he got his memory back. And of course, as we know, statins decrease cholesterol production in the body, and cholesterol is critical to the functioning of our brain. So this is why Dr. Graveline lost his memory temporarily while he was on statins. Another very serious side effects of statins, and there are many, but one of the most serious side effects of statins is that they deplete the body of coenzyme Q10. And coenzyme Q10 is a critical component for energy production in every cell of our body, particularly for our heart. Our heart cannot work or not survive without coenzyme Q10. So it's a bit ironic and a bit of a contradiction, because statins are supposed to help us reduce the risk of getting heart disease, when really they greatly pose a risk. They greatly increase our risk of getting heart disease by depleting the body of coenzyme Q10, which is so critical for energy production in every cell and so critical for our heart to function. Last thing I just want to touch on in this video is just cooking oils. As I said, polyunsaturated fats, omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, are a huge stressor to our body and cause a lot of inflammation. And again, inflammation is a precursor to all chronic degenerative disease. Okay, so what I want to say is that if you guys are going to cook, okay, if you're going to cook, do not use vegetable oils like canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil and safflower oil, or even olive oil. Okay, these are all well, I'll get to olive oil in a second, but do not cook with any of the omega-6 vegetable oils. Again, so like soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil and safflower oil, things of that nature, because when you cook with these oils and when you heat them, they go rancid, they cause free radical damage in your body, and they cause a lot of inflammation. Okay, so they oxidize, they go rancid and cause a lot of inflammation in our body. If you're going to cook, use saturated fats, so things like coconut oil, real butter, goose fat, duck fat and ghee. The reason is that these saturated fats can be heated to very high temperatures. They don't oxidize, they don't go rancid, and they don't cause inflammation within our body. They're very stable at high temperatures. Now, olive oil is a more of a monounsaturated fat, but I still wouldn't recommend that you cook with it, because again, at high temperatures it'll oxidize, it'll go rancid, and it can cause free radical damage in our body, which will elevate the levels of inflammation in our body. So I hope you found this video somewhat informative. I know it was long again, but I just wanted to get this information out there. And again, with all my videos, okay, I just want to share some information, provoke a bit of thought process, and just want to let the people know who are watching this, it's very critical to think for yourself. Okay, I don't want anyone watching this to believe what I say. I would love if you got some of the books that I mentioned here and did your own research and did your own reading and came to your own conclusions. Okay, so please don't believe me, do your own research and think for yourself. Okay, so always make sure you think for yourself, because if you don't think for yourself, somebody will think for you, and bad things happen when someone else does the thinking for you. Okay, so I hope you found this video somewhat good. If you have any feedback or comments, leave them below, and I'll talk to you soon, guys. Take care and stay strong.